Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. So, in the last CISSP video, if you are the part of the playlist, you may have listened to the domain called Apply Security Governance Principle. Now, in the CISSP CBK book, that domain is a bit bigger. So, that's why I have splitted that video into three parts, and this is the second part. The third part of that section, Apply Security Governance Principle, will come again in the next video. So let's get started with this one. And in this particular part of Apply Security Governance Principles Part 2, we will discuss organizational process, security governance, change control, and data classification. And these are not just theoretical concepts, they play a crucial role in securing business and ensuring operational efficiency. So let's explore each one of them in detail. So for the introduction purpose, there are some challenges and there should be some focus that an organization is supposed to have. Like the organization must implement a structured process to maintain security and compliance. Another is security threat continue to evolve in complexity and frequency. So that is another challenge. So we have to always continuously improve our security postures as well. And this presentation covers key aspects of governance and change control as we discussed in the previous slide. So we will explore the data classification methodology to enhance the security posture. So why are organizational process so important in security? The first reason is they standardize security measures across the organization. So let's say if you are a bigger organization or a smaller organization, you have different functions working to make it as a community or as a combined entity. Like you will have a IT team, HR team, then you will have the network team. Within IT there will be many spread, software team, the development team, and so on. So it's very important that everyone is using a standard security method, otherwise the implementation will never be possible and it will always keep the organization on risk. So they help in identifying, mitigating, and responding to risk also. And with this approach of organizational process, we ensure that compliance with regulations like ISO 27001, GDPR, and SOC 2, or it goes beyond if you are in US, things like ITAR and FedRAMP also follows, is met. They enhance collaboration between the IT, security, and the business units. And as an organization, if you are there without a structured process like this is mainly behaving like a ship without a captain. So it lacks direction and control basically. So it's important to have the organizational process in security. Now, security governance is the strategic approach that ensures security aligns with business goals. So let's say as a security person, you cannot just dictate security that hey, you need to have a firewall. Before the firewall, you need to have an what you call a web application firewall, something like a database protection. So if you have that as a protection, that will surely going to create latency and never going to meet business need. So these things need to go hand in hand. For example, for giving you protection, you cannot bind yourself in a room, right? You have to also go out in the traffic, take that minimum risk as much possible, and then apply security. Like you drive in a safe car, you don't unfollow the rules of traffic and those kind of things. So similar thing is required in data flow context also, because it's very important to understand that ultimately the security also exists to protect business. So if the business is not doing business, then security is of no use. And another thing is this security governance also provide leadership, accountability, and a framework for decision making. And the key elements of security governance includes defining security policies and procedures, conducting regular risk assessments, and ensuring compliance with laws and industry regulations. Setting up roles and responsibility is also a part of security governance for cybersecurity. And strong governance always lead to proactive security rather than reactive firefighting. Now, why we need to learn it in CISSP exam? One is of course for sure that you need to pass the exam, so you need to understand the principle and agree with the principle. If you are doing CISSP, this gives a standard, so you need to agree with the standard. first, and it's very important to understand the standard, that why it is important, and look to the positive side, that you do as required and you develop your thinking as required by the business, right? So always think practically, that what is right, and that is going to be the major thing if you want to pass the CISSP exam. So for example, if you are like learning all the definitions and you are doing all the questionnaires, but you are not trying to understand the thought process that is trying to build for you, it will be really hard for you to pass the CISSP exam. Now, these are some of the security governance framework which are there out in the market, and which everyone, more or less every IT organization follows, like ISO 27001, this cybersecurity framework, COBIT for IT governance and management practices, ITIL for service management framework. You can Google each of them and know about them. Now let's talk about change control, which is a systematic approach to managing modification in IT and security environment. Every change, whether a software upgrade, configuration adjustment, or infrastructure upgrade, must go through a structured approval process to minimize risk. The key steps includes request and justification, identifying why the change is needed, an impact assessment, analyzing security, compliance, and operational impacts, testing and validation, ensuring no unintended disruption occurs, approval and implementation, rolling out changes with proper approvals, and a well-defined change control process where you are doing all your documentation and review properly to prevent any security loophole, unauthorized modification, and downtime. Let's have a look to the best practices in change control. The first one is well-documented policy. So first of all, your organization should have a very comprehensive change management documentation with clearly defined roles. Who will do what, right? Then stakeholder involvement. This is the most important part, that you should involve all the key stakeholders. So let's understand it with an example. So let's say you are doing a software upgrade. So it will come under a change management process because it's a change in the software version. Now all the key stakeholders who belongs to the software, and which will be the key stakeholders in general, the users, the business users, the developers of the software, any third party if involved, everyone, right? So whoever is somehow involved in the application usage to management and to the business, they all should be involved. But hey, here is the application we are going to update, here are the risks, here is the date at which we will be like updating the application, and please expect a downtime if there is any downtime during the time of update. Then tracking tools. So we need to use a specialized change management software for request tracking and audit trails. So generally audit trail is something which is enabled in every software. Also like every company is required to have a service management tool like a ServiceNow or any other tool they prefer, to ensure that all the updates of the changes are tracked well. And then post implementation reviews, that we need to review whether the change was even successful, or have it broken anything, is it working fine or not. So it's more like a test environment that you have to create before pushing it to the final production. And we also need to identify and record the improvement opportunity and implement it when the time comes. Now let's discuss about data classification. So data classification is the process of categorizing data based on its sensitivity and value to the organization. And why it is important? Because it helps in prioritizing security measures for sensitive data, and it ensures compliance with regulations like GDPR and HIPAA and many others, whichever is applicable. Reduces the risk of data breaches and unauthorized access. And it also helps you with cost optimization, because then we start focusing on security resources where they matter the most. And without data classification, organization risk exposing critical data to potential cyber threat will be high. Now, organizations typically classify data into 4 categories. The first one is public data, which has like no restriction, like your website. The next one is internal data, which is limited to employees, like business policies. Then confidential data, which requires a strict access like customer records, then is highly sensitive data, which is strictly protected and only accessible to very few people who needs it, like the financial report and the trade secrets. And by assigning the right classification, organizations can enforce proper security control, access restriction, and encryption measures to these data. Now let's see what all data protection measures we can apply to the data. The first is encryption. So we can implement a strong encryption for sensitive data at rest and in transit, like AES 256 and TLS for data transfers. The next one is access control. So always use the role-based permission and least privilege principles for your organization. We should enable things like multi-factor authentication and regularly review the accesses. The next one is auditing. So a regular data audit and compliance checks shall be conducted. Automatic scanning tools are available in the market which can be leveraged for the organization, and quarterly reviews are suggested here. And the most important thing is training. Educate employees on proper data handling practices, and this should be a regular education, and a regular awareness session shall be there. And things like simulated phishing tests are also there, which can be done in an organization to keep the user awareness on high. Now, how these four areas integrate into an overall cybersecurity strategies, like this governance area, the change control, the classification, and the vigilance. Because this organizational process or the governance part, they provide leadership and policy direction and ensure that there is a structured security operation approach. And change control, which minimizes risk from system modifications, and data classification ensures that there is proper data protection, and vigilance, which ensure that we are doing a continuous monitoring and employee training, which are very critical for the success of cybersecurity program in any organization. So thank you for your attention today. We welcome your questions and insight. And if you need any additional resource or reference material, please let me know in the comment box.